She had just walked out wearing a white dress that went below her knees and showed off her new body shape. Camera lights flashed, news stories came out, and everyone on social media kept talking about it. Gayle King, the famous news reporter, CBS morning show host, book writer, and Oprah's best friend, was glowing at a fancy movie premiere in New York City. The event was for a powerful movie about Celine Dion and her fight against a rare brain sickness. But as Gayle smiled for photos, fans weren't just talking about the movie or her pretty outfit. They were whispering about something else, something that made people ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. It's her huge weight loss. She looked amazing, no doubt. Her hair was styled in soft waves, gold high heels were shining, her skin was glowing, and her makeup looked perfect. But the talk online was different. Was it Ozempic? Was it another weight loss medicine like her best friend Oprah had recently said she was using? Gayle hadn't said anything about the rumors, but staying quiet only made people talk more. And for someone who had spent years being so open, so honest, so willing to talk about anything from politics to personal pain, her silence felt weird, even suspicious. People started watching her more closely. She had just been on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit magazine at age 69, an age when most TV people are thinking about slowing down, not posing in swimsuits on shiny magazine pages. Gayle had joked about the photo shoot, saying she'd eaten a cheeseburger before posing and that she asked for tasteful cleavage shots. But what she didn't say was why this big change seemed to happen all at once. She did say she'd been working out 5 to 6 days a week. She said she was feeling better than ever. But other people weren't so sure because something felt different, not just how she looked, but how she acted. Behind the confident smile and happy voice, there was something more fragile, more personal. And then came her words about mental health. In May 2022, Gayle had written a very personal story about why it's important to talk openly about mental health, not just during Awareness Month, but every day. She talked about losing people. She talked about suicide. She talked about how a beautiful face doesn't always mean someone is okay. Her thoughts on Cheslie Kryst's death were especially sad. Cheslie, the former Miss USA, had killed herself, even though she seemed to have everything going for her. Gayle had talked with Cheslie's mother and shared the part of the story that stuck with her most. How Cheslie left a note saying, "Mom, you didn't do anything wrong. In fact, you did everything right." That broke something inside Gayle, because when she shared that story, you could see how deeply it hurt her. She talked about how people can be suffering even when they're smiling, how we're all just one bad moment away from breaking, and how hard it is to talk about that kind of pain. For someone who's always smiling on TV, that kind of raw honesty was rare. It made people start wondering if Gayle herself was going through something she wasn't sharing. Later that year, she mentioned her longtime friend Oprah had been in the hospital after a bad stomach sickness that made her lose too much water from her body. Gayle told viewers, somewhat carefully, that she hoped Oprah wouldn't be mad at her for sharing such a personal detail. But what she didn't say out loud, what fans picked up on, was how shaken she looked as she said it. Like maybe health had become a more serious topic than anyone knew. Soon after, Gayle started skipping events. She was seen less often outside of work. When she did show up, the difference in how she looked was more obvious. Her CBS co-workers praised her for her fitness and hard work. She laughed it off, talking about workouts, drinking water, and Weight Watchers. But by early 2024, those close to her began to sense something had changed again. She seemed more thoughtful on air, more careful with her words. At one point, she opened up about her fear that people aren't always ready to talk about their pain, especially when they have public jobs. She didn't say she was struggling, but her tone said enough. It was around this time that whispers started behind the scenes, not from gossip magazines or fans, but from people who worked with her, people who noticed she was taking longer breaks, between TV segments, that she sometimes walked more slowly, that she winced when standing up, and then came the moment that changed everything. She took a few days off from CBS mornings, something she almost never did. The network said it was planned time off, but sources close to the show hinted otherwise. One producer said she had broken down crying during a commercial break days before. Another said Gayle had recently gotten unexpected medical news that she wasn't ready to tell the public yet. The silence from Gayle and the network was loud. And when she came back to the show, something had changed. She looked determined to smile through it, but even her most loyal viewers could feel it. Was something behind that smile? And then came the surprise. Sources close to her said she'd recently been told she had a serious but secret health condition, something that required immediate lifestyle changes, something that made her step back and think about whether she could keep doing this job with the same energy she'd brought for decades. But Gayle King wasn't dealing with any of it alone. Behind the scenes of every professional jump, personal change, viral interview, or public rumor stood the same steady force that had been there for almost 5 decades. Oprah Winfrey. Their friendship didn't bloom on red carpets or during media parties. It started in the trenches of local news, long before either one became a household name. Back in 1976, Gayle was a young production assistant at WJC-TV in Baltimore, running scripts and doing grunt work behind the cameras. Oprah, just a few years older, was already making waves as a news anchor for the same station. That small newsroom in Baltimore became the birthplace of one of the most famous friendships in television history. From those early days, their connection grew deeper, not through fame or spotlight, but through late-night chats, sleepovers during snowstorms, and a bond built on mutual respect. Gayle would later train as a reporter at WUSA-TV in Washington, D.C., and go on to anchor the news in Kansas City and Hartford, while Oprah's path shot up through Chicago, The Oprah Winfrey Show, and global media power. When Oprah started the Oprah magazine in 1999, she brought Gayle on board as an editor. When Gayle's talk show on OWN ended in 2011, it was Oprah who stood behind her as she stepped into national morning television with CBS. Over the years, they shared more than career milestones. They weathered divorces, defended each other from public attacks, and supported each other during deeply personal losses. Gayle's daughter Kirby and her son Will practically grew up knowing Oprah as a second mother, while Gayle remained Oprah's emotional anchor away from the spotlight. The world never stopped wondering. People asked questions, some curious, some inappropriate. Were they more than friends? Was there something else? Oprah addressed it directly in a 2010 interview with Barbara Walters, calling Gayle the sister she never had, the friend everyone deserves. And when that same question came up again in 2024, both women laughed it off with the same confidence and openness that had always defined them. They didn't need labels. They didn't need validation. Their friendship was built on trust, not titles. When Gayle stunned audiences with her dramatic weight loss in 2024, fans whispered about Ozempic and other Hollywood quick fixes, but few knew what was really going on behind the polished CBS desk. A health condition, a change in routine, a new reality. Gayle didn't want pity. What she wanted was space, support, understanding. And that came from Oprah. The two were still going to fancy parties together, showing up at red carpets arm in arm, and finishing each other's sentences in interviews. But something was different now. There was a protectiveness in Oprah's eyes, a hesitance in Gayle's voice. In June 2024, when Oprah was rushed to the emergency room for a stomach virus that left her badly dehydrated, it was Gayle who broke the news to the world. She did it carefully, but honestly. She said it had been serious, that Oprah needed rest, that it had scared her. Viewers saw that moment for what it was, a friend watching another friend go through something scary and vulnerable. But what most missed was that Gayle wasn't just talking about Oprah. She was talking about both of them. That moment changed things because while Oprah had been through the ER, Gayle was quietly dealing with something equally serious. Something that didn't just affect her health, but her future at CBS. Around the same time, the network made a controversial decision, moving CBS Mornings from its fancy Times Square studio back to a more modest space on Manhattan's West Side. For most anchors, it might have been just a change of scenery. For Gayle, it felt like a slap in the face. She had signed a 1-year extension, agreeing to stay through another tough season of network shakeups and corporate budget cuts. But no one told her about the downgrade. No one warned her that her luxurious office, the one she'd spent years building into a professional sanctuary, was being taken away. She was furious. Not because she was being petty, but because after everything she'd given to CBS, after holding the network together through scandals, restructures, and national tragedies, they hadn't even given her a heads up. Behind the scenes, she let them know she wasn't going to be shoved into some forgotten corner. She had earned every inch of respect, every square foot of that studio, and she wasn't alone. She had Oprah in her corner. Sources close to both women said Gayle made it clear, if CBS wanted her to stay, they had to treat her like the icon she was, not a placeholder, not a cost to trim. And Oprah, she backed her up. That friendship had always been a force, not just because of their history, but because of the way they moved through the world. Oprah often said Gayle was happier for her success than she was for her own. And Gayle had always said Oprah was the most generous soul she'd ever known. When Oprah launched her own network, she brought Gayle along. When Gayle needed space to grow at CBS, Oprah cheered from the sidelines. And when rumors about their relationship swirled for decades, they didn't flinch. They joked about it. They corrected the record, and they reminded everyone that true friendship doesn't need explanation, even during the lowest points. From the scandal involving Gayle's former co-anchor, Charlie Rose, to the backlash she faced after her interview with Lisa Leslie on Kobe Bryant's legacy, Oprah stood firm. She didn't flinch when others did, and Gayle repaid that loyalty with grace, humor, and a relentless work ethic that kept her at the top of her game for decades. Now, though, things were changing. Oprah had hinted at slowing down. Gayle was thinking about it too. Health had a funny way of bringing things into focus. Not just the pain or the diagnosis, but the legacy, the time left, the moments that still mattered. Gayle, even as she smiled through headlines and dressed in gold heels and designer clutches, was facing a truth she could no longer outrun. Her body was telling her something. Her future was waiting. And for once, she had to decide whether saying goodbye to CBS meant stepping back or finally stepping into a new chapter that didn't revolve around deadlines, ratings, or morning call times. CBS wasn't making that decision easy. The ratings were still lagging behind ABC, and NBC executives were scrambling to slash $500 million in expenses, and morale in the newsroom had dropped to an all-time low. Colleagues whispered about exits, about uncertainty, about who might be next. But even in the middle of all that, Gayle King managed to stay in the spotlight, not with another exclusive interview or a tear-jerking moment, but with something no one expected. It happened live on air during a casual segment with podcast powerhouse Alex Cooper. While Cooper was known for asking guests bold, often uncomfortable questions on Call Her Daddy, Gayle decided to flip the script with her trademark mix of confidence and curiosity. She caught the entire set off guard by asking Cooper a risky question about her marriage. The question was so unexpected that even the producers tried to cut in through the earpieces. Gayle wasn't just stirring up trouble, she was making a point. She wanted to show that these were the kinds of moments audiences connected with: honest, bold, unpredictable. And if the network needed a reminder of her range, she delivered it right then and there. Gayle could pivot from a hard-hitting political interview to playful banter without missing a beat. That moment with Cooper wasn't a mistake. It was strategy. It was her proving yet again that she knew how to create TV people couldn't stop talking about. But even as she joked and smiled through segments, big changes were unfolding behind the scenes. Because while Gayle was still showing up for her audience every morning, she was also preparing for a journey unlike anything she'd ever done before. This spring, Gayle King is scheduled to launch into space as part of Blue Origin's historic all-female crew. That's right, at 70 years old. She's suiting up alongside pop icon Katy Perry, journalist Lauren Sanchez, NASA scientist Aisha, civil rights advocate Amanda Nguyen, and producer Kieran Flynn. The mission, named NS-31, will push beyond the Kármán line to 62 miles above Earth's surface into true outer space. They'll ascend at more than 3 times the speed of sound, unbuckle their seats, and float weightlessly for several minutes before returning. The significance of this flight can't be overstated. Not since Valentina Tereshkova's solo mission in 1963 has an all-female crew embarked on something this bold. For Gayle, the experience represents more than a scientific milestone. It's personal. After decades on Earth covering stories from every angle, she now gets to witness something few humans ever have. She isn't just reporting history anymore, she's becoming it. But Gayle's adventures haven't just been galactic. Her personal life has also been filled with emotional highs. Just a few months ago, her son, William Bumpus Jr., now 37, married Elise Smith in an unforgettable ceremony held at none other than Oprah Winfrey's house. Gayle has long referred to Will as her favorite son since he's her only one, and she's made no secret of how thrilled she is about her new daughter-in-law. The couple's wedding was filled with meaning. They met on the 2nd of a month. They got engaged on the 2nd of a month, and they married on June 2nd. Gayle shared the entire story on air, glowing with pride as photos rolled across the screen. Oprah, naturally, was front and center at the event, graciously offering her home for the ceremony and joking with Gayle about her very reasonable venue prices. The setting was stunning, but what touched Gayle most were the vows when her son said, "I know the man I am, but with you, I know the man I want to be." She admitted it gave her chills. Watching her children build families of their own while she continued to explore new frontiers in her life gave her a powerful sense of fulfillment. And yet, despite all these career highlights, family milestones, and soon-to-be space adventures, there was still a cloud hanging over Gayle's future. Something had changed. The diagnosis she received earlier this year may not have been publicized, but it sparked a shift in her mindset. That diagnosis, paired with CBS's instability and her desire to spend more time with her growing family, pushed her to rethink her place in the daily broadcast world. Maybe she wasn't leaving media altogether, but maybe the daily grind, the relentless schedule, the pressure to prop up ratings that weren't her fault, maybe that part was done. So when the whispers started, people didn't want to believe them. Gayle King stepping down. It couldn't be. She's been the steady presence every morning for more than a decade. The calm in the storm. The voice that could interview presidents one day and pop stars the next. But when a woman like Gayle starts saying goodbye, she does it in her own way, with grace, purpose, and clarity. She's not vanishing from public life. She's evolving. From news anchor to space traveler. From reporter to proud mother-in-law. From asking the hard questions to finally answering one for herself. What kind of life does she want now? A life that allows her to be healthy, present, and free to take risks. A life with less noise and more meaning. A life that still reaches millions, but no longer has to happen before sunrise. As she prepares to float through space, laugh with her daughter-in-law, celebrate her son's milestone, and possibly close the chapter on CBS mornings. Gayle is showing everyone watching that reinvention isn't a setback. accepts the reward. And maybe that's what this moment is all about. Maybe her decision to say goodbye isn't about walking away from something broken. Maybe it's about stepping into something bigger, something lighter, something that finally lets her breathe.